Dear viewers, in this videos, we will learn about crew resource management, its fundamental concept, historical context, and its application. We know that every organization aims to achieve its mission with efficiency and safety. Oxford Dictionary defines efficiency as producing desirable results with minimum wastage or loss, which is achieved by good management, whereas safety is a state of being free from harm, injury or loss that is achieved by preventing failures. In essence, safety and efficiency appear to be synonyms, and these are directly proportional to each other. Historically, we know that modern aviation made a humble beginning in 1903. From then on, the focus of aviation industry remained on perfecting machines to prevent failures, thus achieving higher safety performance. However, in this pursuit the man was completely forgotten for almost 75 years. As a result, accidents due to failure of machines reduced, whereas accidents caused due to failure of man continued to rise. And we find that almost 60 to 80% accidents were caused by human error. But the question is, why did this man fail? And why did he do what he did? Jerome Lederer, founder of Flight Safety Foundation, answered by saying that man was originally designed for the Stone Age. It has not since been improved. The problem is that he is asked to operate in a strange environment, with very wide ranges of operating conditions. Therefore, alleviation of human error remains number one problem facing aerospace safety. Since we know that human error causes accidents, costing loss of life and property, then, logical question is that can we accept loss of aircrew or operational assets? Of course not, is the rational answer. Thus, we must do whatever we can to preserve our assets. There is a famous saying, if you continue to do what you are doing, you will continue to get what you are getting. To get something different, you will have to do something different. That different thing in aviation was crew resource management. Starting in 1903, aviation focused on perfecting machine, with lesser focus on the man. This journey continued for over 7 decades. Based on a study, during World War II, Royal Air Force suffered more losses due to human factors. Later in 1972, Everglades accident shocked the world. Yet aviation needed Tenerife accident to address the human factors, involving collision of 2 747 aircraft, and costing loss of 583 lives. This shock was enough for aviation industry to wake up from slumber. Therefore, NASA launched research into causes of aviation accidents, and, in 1979, organized a workshop on resource management on the flight deck. It concluded that most accidents do not result from technical malfunctions of the aircraft, lack of technical knowledge, or failure of aircraft handling skills on the part of the crew. Instead, these are caused due to inability of the aircrew to respond appropriately in critical situations, failure of interpersonal communication, wrong decision-making, or inappropriate leadership style. Therefore, on the conclusion of the workshop, term cockpit resource management was coined, which was later changed to crew resource management. CRM was developed as a methodology to reduce human error by utilizing all available resources, such as human, informational, and equipment, aiming to achieve safe and efficient flight. CRM process involves knowledge of resources available to the crew, skill to use those resources, and management of those resources. This is achieved with the help of good teamwork. Common operational team comprises the pilot, crew members, engineers, controllers, and support services, all synergizing to achieve safe and efficient flight. One may ask, how CRM helps in reducing human error. A pilot requires technical knowledge about the aircraft, so that, whenever any system breaks down, he is quick to recognize symptoms and take action to deal with the situation by using all available resources. Similarly, CRM creates awareness among the crew about the human performance cycle and the factors which influence crew performance. Using this knowledge, crew can recognize the breakdown of the process and its consequences on the safety of flight. Therefore, apply remedial measures to prevent human error, thus achieve safety of flight. CRM focuses on two skills. First is cognitive skill, that relates to the mental processes used for developing accurate perception, maintaining situational awareness, problem solving and decision making. Second is interpersonal skill, that is used for effective communication and behavioral activities for good teamwork. Robert L. Sumwalt, ex-chairman of NTSB, was my teacher in human factors studies. He once said, "As long as airplanes are operated by human beings, mistakes will be made, but, with increased awareness of the principles of CRM, crews can reduce the number of human factor-related accidents." The first step, in any change, is the awareness process. Consider adding CRM training to your next recurrent training syllabus. It is an investment you will never regret. United Airlines was the first airline to start CRM training in 1982. Other airlines followed in the coming years. Later on, CRM training became mandatory requirement for airlines. USAF adopted this concept in 1995. Pakistan Air Force adopted in 2002. I was fortunate to pioneer CRM training in Pakistan Air Force, under able leadership of my mentor, Group Captain Mujahid Islam Khan, a man who dedicated his life to promote safety. May he rest in peace. Ameen. After this brief introduction to CRM training, let us now watch reconstruction of world's deadliest air disaster. In March 1977, two Boeing 747 aircraft collided on the runway. 583 people lost their lives. This was a classic case of breakdown of human performance, due to a variety of human factors. Let's watch the video and draw safety lessons.
Europe, the Canary Islands, Tenerife. Sunday, March the 27th, 1977. Los Rodeos is the island's sleepy airport in the hills. It's not used to heavy traffic and normally handles just a few small planes a day. But this is no ordinary day. 12 noon. After an overnight flight from Los Angeles, Pan Am's flight 1736 is just 2 hours away from the Canary Islands. 12:30 p.m. Suddenly, Pan Am's captain, Victor Grubbs, receives an urgent message from air traffic control. A bomb has exploded at Gran Canaria Airport where he's due to land. He must now head for Los Rodeos Airport on the nearby island of Tenerife. 1:38 p.m. Pan Am 747 is not the only plane diverted because of the bomb. Another jumbo, KLM flight 4805 from Amsterdam, is also diverted to Tenerife's Los Rodeos Airport. It touches down ahead of the Pan Am plane. 3 other diverted planes are already on the ground. Tenerife Airport is small. There's only one airstrip, and the air traffic controllers are not used to so many aircraft, let alone jumbo jets. And it's Sunday, so only 2 controllers are on duty. The passengers on the KLM plane set off towards the airport lounge to relax. 2:15. The Pan Am 747 touches down. It joins the KLM on the tarmac, waiting for Gran Canaria's airport to reopen. 2:30 p.m. Police in Gran Canaria have cleared the bomb, and the passengers think they'll soon be able to get to their destination and start their vacations. But even though the Pan Am plane is ready to take off, it can't. The KLM Jumbo, ahead of it on the taxiway, is refueling. Filling the Jumbo with 55,000 liters of fuel will take 30 minutes. The Pan Am is forced to wait. At 4:56 p.m., KLM's most senior pilot, Captain Jacob van Zanten, requests permission to taxi. 2 minutes later, air traffic control gives the go-ahead. The KLM 4805 taxis down the runway. There are 248 passengers and crew on board. The air traffic controllers instruct the pilots to proceed to the end of the airstrip, make a 180-degree turn, and wait for clearance to take off. Visibility is now down to 300 meters. None of the air traffic controllers can see the planes that they're directing, and there is no ground radar to help them. They are now totally reliant on communicating by radio. 5:02 p.m. The controllers give Pan Am permission to taxi onto the runway right behind the KLM. The Pan Am pilots are then told to turn off at the third exit and wait. Conditions are getting worse by the second. 5:04. The KLM is completing its 180-degree turn and getting into position for takeoff. The Pan Am is still taxiing towards the KLM along the runway. The pilot and co-pilot are trying to find the third exit, but they're not familiar with the airport and can barely see out of their cockpit windows. 5:05. The KLM is in position. After a delay of 3.5 hours, Captain Van Zanten is finally ready to leave. 5:06. Captain Van Zanten releases the brakes. The 747 starts heading down the runway towards the Pan Am, which is still on the airstrip, just 1,400 meters up ahead. 5:06 and 18 seconds. The control tower tells the KLM crew to wait.
Okay, stand by for takeoff. I will call you.
But they don't. Instead, Captain Van Zanten accelerates the KLM Jumbo down the runway. 5:06 and 45 seconds. The Pan Am co-pilot looks out of the window and is horrified by what he sees. The 300,000 kilogram KLM Jumbo is heading straight towards him. The Pan Am has 394 passengers and crew on board. Their only chance is to get out of the way as quickly as possible. Pan Am's Captain Grubbs forces the engines to full throttle. He tries to move the 747 out of the way. .506 and 50 seconds. The KLM smashes into the American Jumbo at 290 kilometers per hour. The air traffic controllers hear the explosions, but because of the fog, they can't see anything. They're unable to make radio contact with either plane. The KLM 747 has careered into the Pan Am, slicing off the upper deck. After the impact, the KLM crashes further down the runway. The tower controllers sound the alarm. These first news pictures show the firefighters tackling the blaze which has engulfed the KLM. They can't find any survivors. Because of the fog, they have no idea that just 450 meters up the runway, the Pan Am Jumbo is also in flames, with hundreds of people still on board. The shattered Pan Am Jumbo can no longer move. but its engines are still running at full power. Of 396 people on board, there are just 61 survivors. Everybody on the KLM 747 and most of those on the Pan Am have perished in the crash. It's the worst aviation accident in history. In all, 583 people have lost their lives. Investigators must answer many questions. Why was the Pan Am Jumbo still on the runway? Was there another bomb? Only when investigators compare the black box tapes from the two planes with the recordings from the control tower do they get the full story. They make a dramatic discovery. In the KLM cockpit, the crew didn't hear certain directions that were clearly audible on the control tower tapes. Just when Captain Van Zanten most needed his radio communications, a loud squeal obliterated vital messages.
Papa 1736 report.
A problem occurs when two or more people try to use the frequency at the same time. It causes a loud, noisy squeal, known as a heterodyne. But the accident at Tenerife was that 1 in 1,000, where the heterodyne was not harmless. 67 seconds before impact. Captain Van Zanten has completed his difficult 180-degree turn at the end of the runway. The flight data recorder reveals that he opens the throttle. The cockpit voice recorder reveals that the co-pilot is alarmed.
Wait a minute, we don't have an ATC clearance.
Captain Van Zanten's reply is curt.
No, I know that, but go ahead, ask.
44 seconds before impact. While the KLM co-pilot is reading back the ATC clearance to the controller, the data recorder reveals that Van Zanten has already begun to accelerate. He doesn't wait for the co-pilot to finish. 37 seconds.
We're going.
But the Pan Am Jumbo is still taxiing on the runway. From the tower tapes, investigators know the controller told the KLM plane to wait for takeoff clearance.
Okay, stand by for takeoff. I will call you.
At that exact moment, the Pan Am cockpit tapes reveal that the Pan Am crew also respond.
We're still taxiing down the runway, the Clipper 1736.
They're both responding at the same time. But the KLM cockpit tape reveals that because both Pan Am and the controller speak at the same time, it creates a heterodyne.
Okay.
Captain Van Zanten simply hears the word, "okay." He doesn't hear the controller.
Okay, stand by for takeoff. I will call you.
Nor does he hear the Pan Am.
We're still taxiing down the runway, the Clipper 1736.
He continues accelerating down the runway. Just 28 seconds later, the KLM Jumbo smashes into the Pan Am. The Dutch investigator feels that this discovery has cleared Van Zanten of any blame. The interference happened 30 seconds before impact, blocking two vital messages. But even after that, the cockpit tapes reveal that Van Zanten had one final warning. 24 seconds before the crash. The Spanish controller makes a second call to Pan Am about its status on the runway.
Papa Alpha 1736. Report runway clear.
The Pan Am co-pilot responds.
Okay, we'll report when we're clear.
This conversation was definitely audible in the KLM cockpit, but only one member of the crew was aware of it.
The Pan Am, is he not clear?
What do you say?
The Pan Am, is he not clear?
Oh, yeah.
The flight engineer was the most junior member of the crew.
Pan Am, is he not clear?
Dismissed by his highly respected captain, he doesn't question him further. Both the Spanish and American investigators are critical of Captain Van Zanten's performance that day. But the final analysis shows that fate was against him. Just seconds before he slammed into Pan Am, Captain Van Zanten tried to lift the KLM plane over the top of it. He pulled the nose up so sharply that the tail scraped the runway. He nearly made it. The nose and front wheel cleared the Pan Am, but the jumbo still couldn't climb high enough. The KLM's #1 engine only had to graze the tip of Pan Am's right side to bring catastrophe. The final irony was that Captain Van Zanten had taken on an extra 55,000 liters of fuel to save refueling time later in Gran Canaria. It was this extra fuel that may have made the jumbo just too heavy to climb the extra few meters in height that could have prevented the disaster. The disaster at Tenerife was caused by a chain of events combining both human error and technical failure. Investigators finally pieced together the critical events that led to the tragedy at Tenerife. First, the air traffic controllers instructed two 747s to taxi onto the same active runway at the same time. Then, in heavy fog and confused by the runway layout, the Pan Am pilot missed his exit and taxied too far. Just seconds later, Dutch pilot Captain Van Zanten began his takeoff without clearance. Finally, a loud squeal in the KLM cockpit prevented the captain from receiving vital messages which may have stopped him in his tracks.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe my channel for more safety videos. Press the bell icon for regular notification.